Welcome back to Breaking Dawn live on Channel 405. Now, the parents of a 10-year-old who passed away during a routine procedure seeking justice for the death of their son and that of other children who've allegedly died at the hands of a Joburg-based pediatric surgeon. The doctor faces similar claims from other parents and an 80,000 rand fine from the HPCSA for negligence. Now, the parents of Zayan Saeed are demanding that the Health Professionals Council of SA suspend the surgeon and launch an inquiry into the death of their son. His parents, Mohammed and Shahina, join us in studio this morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for your time. So on the 11th of October, you sent your son in for a routine procedure. What then happened?
Well, basically, for the last 3 months prior to his procedure, he started throwing up after every meal. So at first we thought it was just a normal gastric bug. It lasted a week or two. Then we started getting a bit concerned. So we took him to different professionals, pediatricians, and the pediatrician said, okay, put him onto Nexium. We did, we went to a pediatric specialist in Morningside, Dr. Priya, and she also said Nexium and some other medication, and the vomiting didn't stop. So eventually, about a month ago, or just over a month ago, we decided to send him in for the scope, which was done by Professor Beale. And after the scope, he called Zahira and he said, your son has metaplasia or pre-malignant cancer cells, and if he doesn't do the procedure, he's going to lose his life. So I wasn't happy as a father, as the parents, we were not happy to do the procedure. I just had a gut feeling that tells you, listen, just hang on. So Zahira and the kids went to Cape Town for a week, and Beale kept on phoning and asking what's happening, how's he doing. And in those 2 weeks when they were in Cape Town, he actually did not throw up. So it was a change of environment, change of scenery, and when Zahira and the kids returned back from Cape Town to Johannesburg, his vomiting resumed. He started throwing up again, profusely. So we took him to his pediatrician, Dr. Castle, and Dr. Castle said he's dead against the procedure. It can be treated with medication. It can be treated other ways. The procedure is simply the last option. Mm-hmm. So he asked then Beale for an opinion. And Beale told him, well, listen, in no uncertain terms, that if we don't do the procedure, Zayan will lose his life. So Castle advised us, go ahead, do the procedure, which against our better judgment we did on the 11th of October. Zayan went in at 3 o'clock for his procedure. He had the saddest expression on his face, as if to say, Dad, I don't want to go in, I don't want to do this. And he actually fell asleep on the bed before they actually put him into theatre. Mm. So the procedure was meant to last an hour and a half. So at 4:30, we're waiting for news. 4:30 comes and goes. 5 o'clock comes and goes. 5:30 comes and goes. At 6 o'clock, we start to stress. Something's amiss. Something's not right. So I phoned my business partner. I phoned my close friend. I said, listen, guys, I'm stressing. Something's not right. So everyone makes their way to the hospital. Eventually, at 10 to 7, Beale walks out, all dressed, ready to go home with his little luncheon. He says that the procedure was a success. Your son was a bit overweight, so it took a bit more time. But from an hour and a half to 4 hours didn't make any sense to me. Then the anesthetist walks out of the recovery room and he tells Beale, Dr. Munshi, his name is Dr. Munshi, Abdullah Munshi. He walks out of the recovery room and he tells Beale that I suspect he may have a collapsed left lung. So Beale says, well, nonchalantly, do you want me to stay? So he says, no, you go home. If I need you, I'll call you. So myself and Zahira be walking to the recovery room with my business partner, and my son is semi-conscious. He's kicking his legs. He's trying to pull the tube out of his mouth. He's trying to pull the drip out. And as parents, it's traumatic. I mean, so the anesthetist then says he calls in for an X-ray, the X-ray to be done. But the funny part is, during the procedure, according to the hospital records, an hour and a half into the procedure, he developed something called a pneumothorax, which means that his lung was ruptured during the procedure.
Okay.
So if you develop a pneumothorax, doing an X-ray it's not necessary, it's not required. Anyway, he calls for the X-ray to be done. The X-ray is done, confirms that he has a ruptured lung. And then he attempts to try and put a tube into his chest from the left-hand side to try and draw the air out of the lung because the lung was blowing up, putting pressure on the heart. So he attempts the first time, and I'm witnessing this as a parent, I'm witnessing this. So he attempts the first time, and it doesn't come right. He pokes him a second time, he doesn't come right. The third time he pokes him, and he inserts the tube. And I'm standing there, and he's asking me, please hold your son's leg, keep his arms down. There was no help at the care facility. Everybody went home.
So at this point, it's just the anaesthetist.
The anaesthetist, one sister, myself, and my business partner.
And the professor had
And the
left.
professor's gone
had
home.
left at this time.
He's on his way home. He feels
So
as
you
if he did
hear
a
that
standard
there's
job.
the injury to the lung from the anaesthetist.
Yes, and Bill was present. But Bill chose to go home. I mean, I don't understand how any practicing surgeon can leave the facility before his patient wakes up. It's unheard of.
And before he left, other than telling you that, it had taken a bit longer because of whatever reason, was there any other information that you'd gotten before he left?
Well, besides the fact that he said the procedure was 100% success, he did say that because your son was overweight and his liver kept on coming in the way, so we had to keep on moving it out of the way. But he was, very calm and psychopathically calm, as if to say, listen, I'm like a godlike complex, like to say, listen, I'm the master. There's no one like me. I've done this a million times before. It's as simple as changing a tire on the car. So coming back to the recovery room, now we're in complete shock. So I'm telling my son, Zayan, I'm saying, son, I'm here, dad's here, don't worry, everything's gonna be just fine. Just, I'm here. Please, just stay with me. It was then that the penny dropped to say, listen, I have the feeling that I'm losing my son. So my wife left, she was too emotional, she was too traumatic to stand in with me. Myself and my business partner stayed behind. And I walked out because I was also starting to, it was extremely, extremely traumatic for me. So I phoned a pediatric pulmonologist, Dr. Riaz Khan. And I said, Doc, please, I need you to come to the hospital. I'm losing my son. So 20 minutes later, he arrives. He rushes to the hospital. He manages to resuscitate him. He gets his blood pressure going, his heartbeat stable, his vital signs are normal. But that's only after they pumped him with several vials of adrenaline to get his heart going, a 10-year-old child. Now, according to professionals, and I've got an uncle who's a specialist pediatrician, he told me when in surgery, in the procedure, when a pneumothorax is developed, or it happens, you've got a window of 2 minutes to sort it out. These Munshi and Bill, they took in excess of 20 minutes to sort out the issue, where they could have sorted it out much quicker.
And
but because he was incompetent, in my opinion, he's completely incompetent. He was sweating bullets, the anaesthetist. He didn't know what he was doing. So it was only until Riaz Khan came and they stabilized him in the recovery room, which is so inadequately prepared for any sort of emergency. There's nothing there. They should have never taken him out of theater to the recovery room without making sure that his vital signs were stable. I mean, during the procedure, an hour and a half into the procedure, his heartbeat went from 120 to 140 to 154 beats per minute. And they did nothing about it. And that, for me, is complete and utter negligence, it's carelessness. And this is not an isolated incident. Ever since the Sunday Times article broke, there have been about in excess of a dozen parents that have come through with their stories. And the sad part is that inquests were launched with the South African Police Service. Complaints were launched with the HSRPCA, whatever they call themselves, which for me is a completely dysfunctional organization. And nothing was done about it. And all those parents over the years who have cried tears and have prayed and have just been through so much, have got no closure from anybody whatsoever, because the fact is Bill was still allowed to operate. In November 2016, he was suspended from Morningside Mediclinic, exactly for negligence, for malpractice, for bad bedside manners. It's totally unbecoming of a doctor, of a surgeon, of a medical practitioner, or should I call him a malpractitioner? So I don't understand if Morningside Medical Clinic suspended him. Surely it was common knowledge among the hospital groups that, listen, Bill is bad news. Don't take him in. Yet, Netcare, knowing that full and well, allowed him to operate in their facility.
Have they admitted that they knew of his previous, the previous
Well,
matters
I've got a
relating to
meeting.
him?
The CEO of Netcare actually called me twice and is messaging me. I'm meeting him today at 1 o'clock at the Netcare's offices in Sandton. I just want to hear what he has to say. But for me, the bottom line is we're not leaving this. We're going to take it to the full, to as far as we can possibly go, on all fronts legally, and to bring closure to all those parents that tragically lost their children unnecessarily at the hands of this murderer. There's no other way to put it. There's no other words to use.
It also sounds as if that, in addition to the professor and his alleged behavior, there seems to be have been some systemic failures in the whole process in the hospital. So just, and what kind of reason have they given for instance, the professor being allowed to leave and anaesthetist then having to deal with a matter that should have been dealt with while your son was still in theatre? You know, you eventually having to call a family member who was a medical practitioner, because it also really does sound that in general there were multiple failures in that particular healthcare facility.
Yeah, there are no rules.
Look, everyone's pointing fingers at everybody now. It's he said, she said. So Bill is blaming the anaesthetist. The anaesthetist is going to turn around and say, but it was Bill's procedure. He was the captain of the ship. He should have been there until the end. He should have been there until Zayan woke up. He should have been there and made sure that Zayan woke up and not have left the hospital and only to come back 45 minutes later. And he was just not interested. And if you dig deeper into Bill's history, a lot of the specialists are coming out and saying that 10 years ago his colleagues called him around the table and said, listen, it's time to hang up the gloves. But due to his pride and arrogance and his godlike complex, he said no, he plainly refused. So this is the result of his pride and arrogance. This is the result of him not adhering to what his colleagues told him and advised him to do. And tragically, in the last few years, there's so many children that have lost their lives because of him. And the buck stops now. And I'm going for him. I'm going the full Monty. And we're not going to leave no stone unturned. And whoever was complicit in allowing him to operate in their facilities, they're going to share the same fate. They're going to pay the price.
I know you've raised some concerns about the HPCSA saying, you know, they essentially ineffective. Has there been any kind of response from them, certainly even as the story has gained attention in the media?
You know,
have they at least acknowledged the complaint?
The funny thing is, there's no value for human life these days. When we wrote a letter to them to bring it to this attention, they wrote back to us saying, please fill in the complaint form, as if it's an insurance claim, as if you know, you're reporting a small theft or a small incident. Please fill in the complaint form, sign it back within 14 days, we'll get back to you and tell you. I mean, there's other parents that have lodged complaints with the HS, whatever they call themselves, 7, 8 years ago, and there's still no closure. In fact, the Tubes family from Cape Town, they waited a number of years before anything was heard from the HSPCA. So that's what I'm saying. They're a completely dysfunctional organization. They have no teeth. You know, it's just a title. That's all it is, just to appease whoever. But there's mounting pressure on them, and we will take them to task as well.
Can we just talk about this to begin with? He said to me, my son had metaplasia and the cells were pre-malignant, and that if we didn't do the op, he was going to have esophageal cancer and die. When we got the report after, there's no signs of metaplasia and there's no pre-malignant cells. So to begin with, he didn't even need the op.
Sure.
So Bill was heavily invested with Barry Tenenbaum. If anyone buys the book on Tenenbaum, there's a whole chapter called The Professor. And in that chapter, it states that the professor invested a lot of money with Tenenbaum and he lost everything. And subsequent to that, he lost his house, He lost his holiday house. His wife divorced him. He lost everything. So he was just going around doing procedures just to recoup the money that he lost. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry for your loss, and I appreciate you coming on to speak to us. Thank you very much for that. We will try and keep track of the developments on this matter. But thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
We have also reached out to the HSPCA to speak to us about this particular matter, and we're hoping when they do have a chance and a representative to send to us that we can speak to them as well.